I'll pay for it. This is my money, not the store's. The words cut through the noise of register 4 like a knife through butter. Everyone froze. The beeping of scanners stopped. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the crying baby 2 aisles over seemed to hold its breath. It was a Saturday afternoon at Peterson's Grocery on Main Street, the kind of afternoon where the store was packed wall to wall with people who just wanted to get home. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, shopping carts squeaked down the aisles, and the air smelled like fresh bread from the bakery mixed with floor cleaner. Register 4 had the longest line, 12 people deep, all clutching their groceries and checking their phones, tired and impatient. At the front of that line stood a man in his early 50s. He wore simple clothes, a faded gray jacket that had seen better days, dark jeans with a small tear near the knee, and scuffed brown shoes that looked like they'd walked 1,000 miles. His hair was neat but graying at the temples. His face was lined with age and something else, something that looked like wisdom earned the hard way. In his hands he held a small basket. Rice, beans, a bottle of cooking oil, a loaf of bread. The basics. Survival food. Nothing fancy. Nothing extra. The cashier, a young woman named Iris, smiled at him as she scanned his items. She was 23 years old with kind brown eyes and dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the store's uniform, a green polo shirt with Peterson's Grocery stitched on the pocket, and a name tag that said Iris in faded letters. She'd been working there for 3 years, saving every penny she could for community college. Her shift started at 6 that morning, and her feet ached in her worn sneakers. "That'll be $19.47, Iris said, her voice friendly despite her exhaustion. The man reached into his jacket pocket. His hand searched. Then it searched again. His smile faded. He checked his other pocket. Then his back pockets. Then his jacket again. His face went pale. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, looking up at Iris with embarrassment in his eyes. "I think I forgot my wallet." Behind him, a woman in expensive workout clothes and oversized sunglasses let out an explosive sigh. She was holding a basket filled with organic vegetables, fancy cheese, and a bottle of wine that cost more than the man's entire purchase. "Are you serious right now?" she practically shouted. Her voice was sharp and cruel. "Some of us have places to be. I have a yoga class in 20 minutes. Move out of the way." Other people in line started murmuring. A man in a business suit checked his watch and shook his head. A teenage girl rolled her eyes and turned to her friend. "This always happens at this store," she whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. The man's face turned red. He looked down at his worn shoes, his shoulders slumping. "I'm so sorry. I could have sworn I had it. I must have left it at home. I can come back later, I just—" "Sir, you need to step aside," came a new voice. The store manager, a thin man named Gerald with a permanent frown and a clipboard clutched to his chest like a shield, had appeared from nowhere. He looked at the man with cold eyes. "If you can't pay, you're holding up the line. We have other customers waiting." "I understand," the man said softly. "I'll just go home and—" "Now, sir," Gerald interrupted, his voice getting louder. "Other people have been waiting. You're causing a disruption." The woman in workout clothes laughed, a mean sound. "Maybe next time don't come shopping if you can't afford it." The man flinched like he'd been slapped. He started to gather his items, his hands shaking slightly, his face burning with shame. Everyone was staring now. Everyone was judging. Whispers filled the air like poison. "Did you see his clothes? Probably homeless. Why do they even let people like that in here? Should have checked before he got in line." Iris watched it all, her heart breaking. She saw the man's hands trembling as he picked up the rice. She saw the way he couldn't meet anyone's eyes. She saw the cruel satisfaction on the faces of the people in line, people who had never missed a meal in their lives, people who had never known what it felt like to count every penny, people who thought their time was worth more than someone else's dignity. And then something inside her snapped. "Wait," Iris said. Her voice was quiet at first but steady. The man paused. Gerald turned to look at her with irritation. The line went quiet. "I'll pay for it," Iris said louder now. Her hand reached into her pocket, past her keys, past the piece of gum she'd been saving for her break, and pulled out a crumpled $20 bill. It was her lunch money. Her only money until payday on Tuesday. She'd been planning to buy herself a sandwich and maybe, if she was lucky, a coffee to get through the rest of her shift. "Iris, what are you doing?" Gerald hissed, stepping closer to the register. "This is my money," Iris said firmly, looking Gerald right in the eye. "Not the store's. I can spend it however I want." She smoothed out the $20 bill and fed it into the register. The machine accepted it with a cheerful beep. She counted out the change, 53 cents, and dropped it into the charity jar next to the register, the one that collected money for the local food bank. "There," she said, handing the man his receipt. "You're all set." The store had gone completely silent. The beeping of other registers seemed miles away. The man stood frozen, staring at Iris like she'd just performed a miracle. His eyes were wet. He started, his voice breaking. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Iris told him with a gentle smile. "Everyone forgets their wallet sometimes. Don't worry about it." The man looked down at his groceries, then back up at Iris. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He wiped it away quickly, but not before Iris saw it. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. He seemed to be struggling with something. Gerald cleared his throat loudly. "Well, if we're done with the drama, can we please get back to work? Next customer, please." The woman in workout clothes stepped forward, still scowling, and practically threw her items onto the counter. "Finally," she muttered. But the man didn't move. He stood there, his groceries in his hands, looking at Iris with an expression she couldn't quite read. It was gratitude, yes, but also something else. Something deeper. Something that made the air feel electric. "Miss," he said softly, "what's your name?" "Iris," she replied. "Iris?" he repeated like he was memorizing it. "What time do you get off work?" Iris glanced at Gerald, who was glaring at her with barely concealed anger. 7 o'clock. The man nodded slowly. "Would you mind if I waited for you? I'd like to talk to you properly. To thank you." "That's really not necessary," Iris said, feeling embarrassed. Anyone would have done the same thing. "No," the man said quietly, looking around at the people in line who had mocked him, who had called him names, who had treated him like garbage. "No, they wouldn't have." He looked back at Iris, and this time his expression was intense. "My name is Caleb Rains. And I need you to know something. What you just did, the kindness you showed me when everyone else wanted me gone, it meant more than you could possibly understand." "Really, it's okay," Iris said, her cheeks turning red. "It was just $20. "Just $20, Caleb repeated, and something about the way he said it made Iris shiver. "Iris, that $20 was your lunch money, wasn't it?" She hesitated, then nodded. "You gave away your own food to feed a stranger," Caleb said. "You gave away the last money you had until your next paycheck. You did this while your manager was angry with you, while these people were watching and judging, while you had every reason to keep that money for yourself. Do you understand how rare that is? Do you understand what that says about who you are?" Iris didn't know what to say. She'd never thought about it like that. She just saw someone who needed help and helped them. It seemed like the obvious thing to do. "Sir, you really need to move," Gerald said, his voice tight. "You're still blocking the line." Caleb looked at Gerald, and for just a moment, something flashed in his eyes. Something cold and hard. But then it was gone, replaced by the same humble expression he'd worn before. "Of course," Caleb said. "I apologize." He picked up his groceries and started toward the door. But after 3 steps he stopped and turned back around. 7 o'clock, he called to Iris. "I'll be outside. Please, give me just 5 minutes of your time." Before Iris could respond, he was gone, pushing through the automatic doors and disappearing into the parking lot. The woman in workout clothes snorted. "Creepy. You should probably call the cops if he's still out there when you get off." Iris ignored her and started scanning her items. Her hands moved automatically while her mind raced. Something about that encounter felt strange. The way Caleb had looked at her. The intensity in his voice. The tears in his eyes. It was like she'd done something bigger than she realized, but she couldn't figure out what. The rest of her shift crawled by like molasses. Gerald pulled her aside during her break and lectured her for 15 minutes about appropriate workplace behavior, and not setting precedents, and what would happen if every cashier started giving away money to every customer who forgot their wallet. Iris nodded and apologized, even though she didn't feel sorry at all. Her coworker, a girl named Selah who worked Register 5, caught her in the break room at 6:30. "That was really cool what you did," Selah said, pouring herself a cup of the terrible break room coffee. "That guy Gerald was being such a jerk about it." "Yeah, well," Iris shrugged, "I couldn't just let him leave with nothing. Did you see what he was buying? Just basics. He really needed that food." "I know, right?" Selah agreed. "And that lady behind him was so rude. I swear, rich people are the worst sometimes." She paused, taking a sip of coffee and making a face. Hey, are you actually going to meet that guy outside? Iris bit her lip. I don't know. Is that weird? Maybe a little, Selah admitted. But also he seemed really genuine. Not creepy, just grateful, you know? And you did kind of save him from total humiliation. I guess. Just be careful, Selah said. Meet him somewhere public, keep your phone handy, all that stuff. The parking lot is pretty public, Iris pointed out. True. And hey, if he turns out to be a secret millionaire who wants to reward you for your kindness, get me in on that action, okay? They both laughed, but Iris felt a weird flutter in her stomach. Something about this whole thing felt significant, like she was standing on the edge of something that would change everything. But that was silly. It was just a guy who forgot his wallet. She gave him $20. End of story. At 7 o'clock, Iris clocked out, grabbed her jacket from her locker, and headed toward the front of the store. Through the big windows she could see the parking lot, bathed in the orange glow of the setting sun. And there, standing next to a simple sedan that looked about as old as her car, was Caleb. He was still wearing the same worn jacket, the same old shoes. But something about his posture had changed. He stood straighter, more confident, like he'd shed a disguise. Iris pushed through the doors and Caleb turned to face her. He smiled and it was warm and genuine. You came, he said. You waited, Iris replied. I told you I would. Caleb looked at her carefully. Thank you for giving me your time. I know you must be tired after a long shift. It's okay, Iris said. So, what did you want to talk about? Caleb was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Iris, how long have you worked at this store? 3 years. And in those 3 years, how many times have you seen someone forget their wallet or not have enough money? Iris thought about it. I don't know. Maybe a dozen times? It happens more than you'd think. And how many times have you paid for them yourself? Today was the first time, Iris admitted. But it's not because I didn't want to before. I don't usually have much extra money. Today was kind of special because I picked up an extra shift this week. But I saw your face and I saw how those people were treating you and I just couldn't stand it. Caleb nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed something important. Iris, I need to tell you something. But first I have a question. What are you working toward? Why do you work at this store? I'm saving for community college, Iris said. I want to study business management. Maybe open my own store someday, something better than Peterson's where people actually treat customers with respect. A good dream, Caleb said. How long until you have enough saved? Iris laughed, but it was a sad sound. At the rate I'm going? Maybe 3 more years. The classes are expensive and I have to help my mom with rent. She works 2 jobs but it's still tight. So I save what I can but it's slow. 3 more years, Caleb repeated. 6 years total working at a store where your manager treats you like that. Where customers treat each other like that. It's not always bad, Iris said, though she wasn't sure why she was defending it. Some people are nice. But not most, Caleb said. No, Iris admitted. Not most. Caleb reached into his jacket, and for a wild second, Iris wondered if Selah had been right to warn her about meeting him. But what he pulled out wasn't a weapon. It was a wallet. A very nice wallet, leather and well-worn, the kind that probably cost more than Iris made in a week. He opened it and pulled out a business card. He handed it to her. Iris looked down at the card. It was simple but elegant. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. Read. Caleb Rains, founder and chairman, Rains Holdings International. Below that was a phone number and an email address. Iris stared at it, not understanding. I don't. Iris, Caleb said gently, I didn't forget my wallet today. I left it in my car on purpose. The world tilted slightly. What? I've been doing this for 6 months now, Caleb explained. Going to different stores, different neighborhoods, dressed like this, pretending to forget my wallet. Do you know how many people have helped me in that time? Out of dozens and dozens of people? Iris shook her head, unable to speak. 2, Caleb said. 2 people. An elderly man in Detroit who barely had enough for his own groceries but offered to split his food with me. And you. But why? Iris managed to ask. Because I needed to know, Caleb said, and his voice was thick with emotion. I needed to know if there was still kindness in this world. Real kindness. The kind that costs something. The kind that risks something. My wife died 5 years ago and before she passed she told me something. She said that I'd built an empire, but I'd forgotten what it was like to need help. She said I'd surrounded myself with people who would do anything for me because of my money and my power, but I'd lost touch with real human goodness. She made me promise that I would find it again, that I would remember what it feels like to be vulnerable, to need help, to be at the mercy of strangers. Tears were rolling down his cheeks now and he didn't wipe them away. So I've been searching, Caleb continued. Putting myself in situations where I need help, where I'm powerless, where people could ignore me or mock me or help me, and it would cost them something either way. And what I've learned, Iris, is that most people choose cruelty. Most people choose judgment. Most people choose convenience. But not you. You chose kindness. You chose dignity. You chose love. Iris felt tears pricking her own eyes. I just did what anyone should do. But they don't, Caleb said firmly. They don't, Iris. That's the point. You are exceptional and you don't even know it. He pulled something else out of his wallet. A check. He handed it to her. Iris looked down at it and gasped. It was made out to her name. For $50,000. What is this? She whispered. That's for your education, Caleb said. All of it. Community college and then a 4-year degree if you want it. Room, board, books, everything. You shouldn't have to wait 3 more years. You shouldn't have to sacrifice any more than you already have. Iris couldn't breathe. I can't accept this. Yes, you can, Caleb said. And you will. Because you earned it, Iris. Not through work or skill or talent, though I'm sure you have all of those things. You earned it through character. Through the simple choice to be kind when it would have been easier to look away. But I just gave you $20. You gave me your lunch, Caleb corrected. You gave me the last money you had. You gave me your dignity in front of people who wanted to see me humiliated. You gave me proof that my wife was right, that goodness still exists, that not everyone has forgotten how to care about each other. Do you have any idea how much that's worth? Iris was crying now, full-on tears streaming down her face. This is too much. It's not enough, Caleb said. But it's a start. And there's more. I own buildings in this city, Iris. Commercial properties. I want to offer you something else. After you finish school, I want to help you open that store you dreamed about. A place where customers are treated with respect. Where employees are valued. Where kindness is the rule, not the exception. I'll provide the space, the initial inventory, the support you need. You provide the vision and the heart. What do you say? Iris couldn't speak. She couldn't process any of this. This morning she'd woken up in her tiny apartment, worried about how she was going to afford groceries and rent this month. Now she was holding a check for $50,000 and being offered her dream. Why? She finally managed to ask. Why me? Caleb smiled, and it was the saddest, most beautiful smile Iris had ever seen. Because kindness should be rewarded, he said simply. Because good people shouldn't have to struggle while cruel people prosper. Because my wife would have loved you, and this is how I honor her memory. By finding people like you and giving you the chance you deserve. He took a step back. Think about it. That's my personal cell number on the card. Call me when you're ready. No pressure. But I meant every word I said. Caleb started toward his car, then stopped and turned back one more time. Oh, and Iris? One more thing. Yes. I own this building, Caleb said quietly. Peterson's Grocery rents this space from Rains Holdings. I'm going to be having a conversation with the owner about their management practices. I don't think that man named Gerald is going to be a problem for you much longer. And with that, he got in his car and drove away, leaving Iris standing in the parking lot, holding a check and a business card, her entire world turned upside down by a simple act of kindness. Inside the store, through the big windows, she could see Gerald at Register 4, counting money for the evening deposit. She could see the same customers shuffling through the same aisles, buying the same things, living the same lives they'd lived yesterday and would live tomorrow. But Iris's life would never be the same. She looked down at the check in her trembling hands. $50,000. Freedom. Education. A future. And all because she'd given away her last $20 to a stranger. Iris wiped her tears and smiled. Maybe kindness really was worth something after all. Iris didn't sleep that night. She sat on her bed in her small apartment, the check laid out on her nightstand like some kind of holy artifact, and she just stared at it. The numbers didn't change. $50,000. She picked up her phone a dozen times to call her mother, then put it down again. How do you even begin to explain something like this? Hey Mom, remember how I gave a stranger $20 today? Well, turns out he's a billionaire and now my entire life is different. It sounded insane even in her own head. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of Mrs. Chen's television through the thin walls and the occasional car passing on the street below. Iris lived in a studio on the 3rd floor of an old building in the cheaper part of town. The paint was peeling, the radiator clanked, and sometimes the hot water didn't work, but it was hers. Well, hers and the bank's. She paid $700 a month for this tiny space with its narrow kitchenette and bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. She'd lived here for 2 years, ever since she'd turned 21 and decided she needed to be independent, needed to stop being a burden on her mother who was already working herself to death. The morning sun was just starting to filter through her single window when Iris finally made a decision. She got dressed in her one good outfit, a simple navy dress she'd bought at a thrift store for a job interview 3 years ago, and she took the bus downtown to the address printed on Caleb's business card. Raines Holdings International occupied the top 5 floors of the Meridian Tower, one of those sleek glass buildings that looked like it cost more than Iris would make in 10 lifetimes. She stood on the sidewalk staring up at it, feeling small and out of place. People in expensive suits rushed past her, talking on phones, carrying leather briefcases, moving with the confident stride of people who belonged in places like this. Iris took a deep breath and walked through the revolving doors into a lobby that looked like something from a magazine. Marble floors. Towering ceilings. A massive crystal chandelier that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. A security desk sat in the center with 2 guards who looked like they'd never smiled in their lives. Iris walked up to them, her cheap shoes squeaking on the polished floor. The younger guard looked up at her with barely concealed boredom and said in a flat voice that suggested he'd said these words 1,000 times before, "Can I help you?" Iris fumbled with her purse and pulled out the business card. "I'm here to see Caleb Raines. He told me to call, but I thought maybe I could just come by instead and—" The guard's expression changed instantly. He sat up straighter and actually looked at her like she was a real person. "Mr. Raines is expecting you?" Iris hesitated because she wasn't sure that was exactly true, but she nodded anyway. The guard picked up his phone and spoke quietly into it, and Iris caught fragments of the conversation like, "Young woman, and has his card, and should I send her up?" There was a pause, then the guard's eyebrows went up. He hung up the phone and looked at Iris with something that might have been respect. "Top floor. Executive suite. The elevator on the left will take you directly up. You'll need this." He handed her a special key card. Iris took it with shaking hands and walked to the elevator, feeling the eyes of both guards on her back. The elevator was made of glass and brass and smelled like expensive cologne. As it rose, Iris could see the entire city spreading out below her, and she thought about how different the world looked from up here. How small everything seemed. How easy it would be to forget about people like her, people who counted pennies and worried about rent, when you spent your days in buildings that touched the sky. The elevator opened directly into a reception area that made the lobby look modest. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a panoramic view of the city. The furniture was all clean lines and modern design. Fresh flowers sat in crystal vases on every surface. A woman sat behind a massive desk, perfectly put together in a cream-colored suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a style that probably required a professional. She looked up as Iris stepped out of the elevator and smiled. A genuine warm smile that immediately put Iris at ease. "You must be Iris. Mr. Raines told me to expect you. I'm Vera, his executive assistant. He's just finishing up a call, but he said to send you right in as soon as you arrived." Vera stood and led Iris down a hallway lined with artwork that Iris was pretty sure was original and probably worth more than she could comprehend. They stopped at a set of double doors made of dark wood with brass handles. Vera knocked once, then opened the door. "Iris is here, sir." Caleb's office was enormous. The entire far wall was windows, flooding the space with natural light. There was a sitting area with leather couches, a conference table that could seat 20 people, built-in bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes, and in the center of it all, a massive desk made of what looked like a single piece of polished wood. Caleb stood behind that desk, phone to his ear, but when he saw Iris he immediately said into the phone, "I need to call you back," and hung up without waiting for a response. He came around the desk and crossed the office in quick strides, and Iris was struck again by how different he looked now. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. His graying hair was neatly styled. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. This was not the humble man in the worn jacket from yesterday. This was power and success and wealth. But when he smiled at her, it was the same warm, genuine smile from the parking lot. "Iris, I'm so glad you came. I wasn't sure if you would." He gestured to the sitting area. "Please have a seat. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" Vera makes the best coffee in the building. Iris shook her head and sat on the edge of one of the leather couches, her hands folded in her lap. Caleb sat across from her in a matching chair. "I couldn't sleep," Iris said, her voice small in this huge office. "I kept thinking this had to be some kind of mistake or a dream or maybe even a scam. This doesn't happen to people like me." Things like this don't happen in real life. Caleb leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his expression serious. Iris, I need you to understand something. What happened yesterday wasn't random. It was a test, yes, but not of you. It was a test of humanity, of what we've become as a society. And most people fail that test every single day. They fail it when they walk past a homeless person without seeing them. They fail it when they mock someone for not having enough money. They fail it when they choose their convenience over someone else's dignity. But you didn't fail. You passed with flying colors. And that's not common. That's not normal. That's exceptional. He stood and walked to his desk, picked up a folder, and came back. I meant every word I said yesterday. The money for your education, the opportunity to open your own business, all of it. But I also want to offer you something else. Something I've been thinking about all night. He opened the folder and pulled out several papers. I want to hire you. Iris blinked. Hire me? To do what? Caleb sat back down. I told you I've been doing these tests for 6 months. 2 people helped me in all that time. 2. Out of maybe 100 situations. That tells me something is broken. People have forgotten how to be kind. They've forgotten how to see each other as human beings instead of obstacles or opportunities. And I want to fix that. He handed her the papers. I want to start a foundation. The Reigns Foundation for Human Kindness. Its mission will be to find people like you, people who choose compassion over cruelty, and reward them. To create programs that teach empathy and kindness. To partner with businesses to change how they treat employees and customers. To be a voice in this world that says kindness matters, that it has value, that it should be encouraged and celebrated. Iris looked at the papers, but the words swam in front of her eyes. And you want me to be part of this? Caleb nodded. I want you to run it. I want you to be the director. You'll have a team, a budget, complete autonomy to build this however you see fit. I'll provide the funding and the resources. You provide the heart and the vision. You understand what it's like to need help. You understand what kindness costs. You're the perfect person for this. Iris felt like she couldn't breathe. I don't have any experience. I'm a cashier. I never even finished college. Caleb smiled. You have the only experience that matters. You have character. Everything else can be learned. And you will finish college. You'll take classes while you work. We'll make sure of it. But Iris, I'm not looking for someone with a business degree or management experience. I can hire those people any day of the week. I'm looking for someone who understands what yesterday meant. Someone who would give away their last $20 to help a stranger. That's who I need. Iris looked down at the papers in her hands. They outlined a salary that was more than double what she made at Peterson's grocery. Benefits, a retirement plan, stock options in Reigns Holdings, an education stipend. It was more than she'd ever dreamed of having. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Really? The foundation, the tests, all of it? Is it really just because of what your wife said? Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. My wife's name was Naomi. We met when I was nobody. I was 23 years old, working 3 jobs, sleeping in my car between shifts because I couldn't afford rent. I had this crazy dream of starting my own company, but I had no money, no connections, nothing but ambition and stubbornness. One night I was at a diner at 3 in the morning trying to make a single cup of coffee last for hours so I could use their bathroom in their heat, and Naomi was the waitress. She saw me there night after night and she never made me feel like a burden. She'd refill my coffee without charging me. She'd bring me extra sugar packets and creamers. Sometimes she'd bring me food and tell me it was a mistake order, but I knew she was paying for it herself. He stood and walked to the windows looking out at the city. One night she sat down across from me on her break and she said, "You're going to be somebody someday. I can tell. You have that look. But promise me something. Promise me that when you make it, when you have everything you want, you won't forget what it feels like to be here. Promise me you'll remember the people who helped you. Promise me you'll be kind." And I promised her. We got married 2 years later. I built my first company. Then my second. Then my third. The empire grew. The money came. And somewhere along the way I forgot my promise. I forgot what it felt like to need help. I surrounded myself with yes men and sycophants. I made decisions based on profit and efficiency. I stopped seeing people as people and started seeing them as resources or obstacles. And Naomi, she called me on it. She told me I'd become the kind of man who would have walked past that 23-year-old kid in the diner without even seeing him. She told me I'd lost myself. Caleb turned back to face Iris and his eyes were wet. She got sick 3 months after that conversation. Cancer. Aggressive. They gave her 6 months. She lasted 4. And in those 4 months she made me promise again. Made me swear that I would find my way back. That I would remember what kindness looked like. That I would pay forward all the grace that had been shown to me when I had nothing. So that's what I've been doing. Testing myself. Testing the world. Trying to find people who still remember how to care. He walked back to the couch and sat down. Yesterday, when you paid for my groceries, when you defended me against that manager and those customers, when you gave me your last bit of money without hesitation, I felt something I haven't felt in 5 years. I felt hope. I felt like maybe Naomi was right. Maybe there are still good people out there. Maybe the world isn't as broken as I thought. And I realized that finding you, finding people like you, that's how I keep my promise to her. That's how I honor her memory. Iris was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry about your wife. Caleb smiled sadly. So am I. But she gave me a gift before she left. She gave me a purpose. And now I'm offering you the same thing. A chance to make kindness matter. To show the world that good people exist and they deserve to be celebrated. What do you say? Iris wiped her eyes and looked at the papers in her lap, then at Caleb, then out the massive windows at the city below. She thought about her tiny apartment and her 2 jobs and her mother working herself to death. She thought about Gerald at Peterson's grocery treating employees like they were disposable. She thought about the woman in workout clothes mocking a man for being poor. She thought about all the cruelty and indifference she'd seen in her 23 years, and she thought about how good it had felt to do something kind, even something small. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Caleb's entire face lit up. Really? Iris nodded, feeling a strange sense of certainty settling over her. Really? I don't know if I'll be any good at it. I don't know the first thing about running a foundation. But if you're willing to teach me, I'm willing to learn. Because you're right. The world needs more kindness. And if I can be part of making that happen, then I want to try. Caleb stood and extended his hand. Iris stood too and shook it, and his grip was firm and warm. Welcome to Rains Holdings, Iris. I have a feeling you're going to change everything. Over the next 2 weeks, Iris's life transformed so completely that sometimes she had to pinch herself to make sure it was real. She gave her notice at Peterson's grocery, and Gerald was so shocked he actually stuttered. She didn't tell him where she was going or why, just thanked him for the opportunity and walked out with her head held high. Her co-workers threw her a small party in the break room, and Selah cried and made Iris promise to keep in touch. Her mother had been the hardest conversation. Iris had gone to her apartment and told her everything, the forgotten wallet, Caleb's revelation, the check, the job offer, all of it, and her mother had just stared at her in stunned silence before bursting into tears and hugging her so hard Iris thought her ribs might crack. Caleb set Iris up with Vera, who became her mentor and guide through the corporate world. Vera taught her how to dress for the office, how to navigate corporate politics, how to run meetings and manage budgets and read financial statements. Iris was a fast learner, soaking up information like a sponge. She started taking online business classes in the evenings. She moved into a new apartment in a better neighborhood, nothing fancy but clean and safe with working heat and hot water that never stopped. She bought her mother a new car to replace the one that broke down every other week. She put money into savings for the first time in her life. But the best part was the foundation. Caleb gave her a corner office on the same floor as his, not as big but with the same stunning views. He allocated an initial budget of $5 million for the first year. He helped her hire a small team, 3 people to start, a program director, a finance manager, and a communications specialist. And then he stepped back and let Iris build her vision. The first thing Iris did was set up a hotline, a number people could call to report acts of kindness they'd witnessed or received. Each report was investigated, and if verified, the kind person received a reward ranging from $500 to $10,000 depending on the circumstances and the sacrifice involved. Within the first month, they'd received over 3,000 calls. Most were fraud or exaggerations, but about 200 were real, genuine stories of people helping strangers at their own expense. A teacher who'd spent her own money to buy winter coats for students who couldn't afford them. A mechanic who'd fixed an elderly woman's car for free because she needed it to get to her medical appointments. A teenager who'd given his birthday money to a homeless veteran. Each one got a check and a letter explaining that their kindness had been noticed and valued. The second thing Iris did was create a partnership program with businesses. Companies could sign up to receive training on treating employees and customers with dignity and respect. In exchange, they'd get the Rains Foundation seal of approval, a mark that could be displayed on their storefront or website showing they were committed to kindness. The response was overwhelming. Within 6 weeks, over 50 businesses had signed up, from small local shops to major chains. And the third thing, the thing Iris was most proud of, was the scholarship program. They set aside $1 million a year to provide full college scholarships to people who demonstrated exceptional character. Not the highest grades or the best test scores, but the biggest hearts. People who volunteered at shelters, who stood up to bullies, who helped their communities. The first round of applications brought in over 5,000 submissions. Reading them made Iris cry almost every night. So many good people out there, struggling and sacrificing and trying their best to make the world better despite having so little themselves. 3 months into her new job, Iris was sitting in her office late on a Friday evening, reviewing applications for the second round of scholarships, when Vera knocked on her door. "You're still here?" Vera asked, leaning against the doorframe. "You know you're allowed to go home, right? You're the boss." Iris laughed. "I know. I just want to get through these before the weekend." Vera walked in and sat in one of the chairs across from Iris's desk. "You're really good at this, you know. Better than Caleb even hoped. The foundation is exceeding every goal we set." Iris felt her cheeks warm. "It's not hard when you believe in what you're doing." Vera was quiet for a moment, then said, "Can I tell you something? Caleb didn't just start this foundation because of his wife. Well, he did, but there's more to it. When Naomi died, he went into a really dark place. He almost didn't come out of it. He stopped going to work. He stopped eating. He just sat in their house surrounded by memories and drowning in guilt over his broken promise. His board of directors was talking about removing him as chairman. His companies were suffering. Everyone was worried he was going to do something drastic." Iris set down the application she'd been reading. "What happened?" Vera smiled. "You happened? I mean, not you specifically, but the idea of you." He realized that the only way to honor Naomi's memory was to keep his promise, to actively go out and find kindness in the world and celebrate it. So he started doing the test. At first he hired actors to play the part of someone who forgot their wallet, but that felt fake. So he started doing it himself. He'd dress down, go to different stores, different neighborhoods, and see what happened. And most of the time what happened was cruel. People would mock him, ignore him, complain about him. It was devastating. He'd come back to the office after these tests and he'd be so depressed, so convinced that Naomi had been wrong, that kindness was dead. Iris felt tears pricking her eyes. "But then he met the old man in Detroit?" Vera nodded. "That was the first breakthrough. Gave him hope. Proof that good people still existed. And then he met you and you didn't just help him, you defended him. You gave up your own food to feed a stranger. You stood up to your manager and those awful customers. You restored his faith in humanity. You saved him, Iris. You gave him a reason to keep living, to keep trying, to keep building. This foundation isn't just about honoring his wife. It's about you. About what you represent. About the hope that maybe, just maybe, the world isn't as broken as it seems." Iris couldn't speak. She hadn't known any of this. Hadn't realized the weight of what her small act of kindness had carried. Vera stood. "Anyway, I just thought you should know. You changed his life. And now you're changing thousands of other lives too. You should be proud." After Vera left, Iris sat alone in her office as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She thought about Caleb's wife Naomi, who she'd never met but who felt like a guiding presence in everything they did. She thought about the old man in Detroit who'd offered to share his food. She thought about all the people who'd called the hotline with their stories of kindness, all the scholarship recipients whose lives were changing, all the businesses learning to treat people better. And she thought about the woman in workout clothes at Peterson's grocery, the one who'd mocked Caleb and told him he shouldn't shop if he couldn't afford it. Iris wondered if that woman had any idea how much damage her cruelty had done, not just to Caleb in that moment, but to everyone who witnessed it. Everyone who learned from her example that it was okay to be cruel, that being rich gave you permission to look down on people who had less. Iris made a decision right then. The foundation needed to do more than just reward kindness. It needed to show people the cost of cruelty. It needed to hold up a mirror and make people see what they were becoming. She pulled out her laptop and started typing, her fingers flying over the keys. A new program proposal. The Kindness Initiative. It would partner with schools, teaching children about empathy and compassion. It would create public awareness campaigns showing real stories of how cruelty hurt and how kindness healed. It would work with media to highlight positive stories instead of just tragedy and conflict. It would train customer service workers to stand up for dignity. It would be ambitious and expensive and difficult. But it would change things. It had to. Because if Iris had learned anything from the last 3 months, it was that kindness was a choice, and people needed to be reminded that they had that choice, that they could make it, that it mattered. When Iris finally left her office that night, it was past 10. The building was quiet, most people having gone home hours ago. But as she walked to the elevator, she noticed light coming from under Caleb's office door. She hesitated, then knocked softly. Caleb's voice called out for her to come in, and she found him sitting at his desk, reading through a stack of documents. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "Iris? Burning the midnight oil?" She walked in and sat in one of the chairs across from his desk. "I could say the same about you. Vera told me what you've been through. About Naomi. About the dark place you were in. I just wanted to say thank you. For trusting me with this. For giving me this chance. I know it's about more than just a foundation." Caleb set down his papers and leaned back in his chair. "Vera talks too much sometimes. But she's not wrong. You did save me, Iris. Not because you paid for my groceries, but because you proved that my wife was right. That kindness still exists. That people still care. That there's hope." He paused, then added, "And now you're taking that hope and multiplying it 1,000 times over. The things you're doing with the foundation, the programs you're creating, they're beyond anything I imagined. You're not just honoring Naomi's memory. You're creating a legacy that will outlive both of us." Iris felt emotion welling up in her chest. "I want to do more. I have ideas for new programs, ways to reach more people, to create real systemic change. But I need your approval for the budget increase." Caleb laughed. "Iris, I gave you autonomy, remember? If you think it's worth doing, do it. I trust your judgment completely." They talked for another hour about Iris's ideas, Caleb offering suggestions and insights from his decades of business experience. By the time Iris finally left, it was almost midnight, but she felt energized, excited, purposeful in a way she'd never experienced before. As she drove home through the quiet city streets, past the closed shops and dark windows, past people sleeping in doorways and under bridges, past all the hidden struggles and secret kindnesses that happened every day unseen, Iris thought about how much her life had changed from one simple decision to be kind, and she made a promise to herself and to Naomi, the woman she'd never met but who had started all of this, that she would never forget, never take it for granted, never stop fighting to make kindness matter in a world that too often forgot its value. And as she pulled into her apartment parking lot and saw the light still on in her mother's window where she knew her mother was staying up late reading because she'd bought her a whole collection of books she'd always wanted but could never afford, Iris smiled and whispered into the darkness, "Thank you." 1 year after that Saturday afternoon at Peterson's Grocery, Iris stood on a stage in the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, looking out at over 500 people who had gathered for the first annual Rains Foundation Gala, and she couldn't quite believe this was her life now. The ballroom was magnificent, all crystal chandeliers and gold accents and tables draped in white linen, each one decorated with centerpieces of white roses and candles that flickered like tiny stars. The guests were dressed in evening gowns and tuxedos, people who had paid $1,000 a plate to be here, to support the foundation, to celebrate kindness. Iris wore a simple but elegant navy dress that Vera had helped her pick out, nothing too flashy because that wasn't her style, but nice enough that she felt like she belonged. Her mother sat at a table near the front, wearing a new dress too, her eyes shining with pride. Next to her sat the old man from Detroit, the other person who had helped Caleb during his tests, a man named Victor who Iris had tracked down and invited as a guest of honor. And at the head table, Caleb sat with his board of directors and several major donors, all of them waiting to hear Iris speak about the foundation's first year. Iris took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. The room fell silent. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "A year ago, I was a cashier at a grocery store making $9 an hour and living paycheck to paycheck. I had dreams of going to college someday, of opening my own business, of making something of myself, but those dreams felt impossibly far away. And then one Saturday afternoon, a man came through my line and told me he'd forgotten his wallet. He had $19 worth of groceries, basic things, rice and beans and bread, the kind of things you buy when every penny counts. The people in line behind him were angry. They called him names. They told him to get out of the way. My manager told him he was causing a disruption. And I looked at this man, this stranger, and I saw the shame in his eyes, the humiliation of being poor in a world that treats poverty like a crime. So I did something simple. I paid for his groceries with my own money. $20. My lunch money. The last money I had until my next paycheck. It wasn't heroic. It wasn't brave. It was just human decency. It was treating someone the way I would want to be treated. And that simple act changed my entire life." She paused, looking out at the audience. Every eye was on her. That man was Caleb Rains. And what I didn't know was that he had been testing people, going to stores and pretending to forget his wallet, trying to find kindness in a world that had shown him mostly cruelty. Out of dozens and dozens of people, only 2 helped him. Only 2 people chose kindness over convenience. That's a devastating statistic. It means that most of us, when faced with someone who needs help, choose to look away, choose to judge, choose to protect our own comfort instead of extending a hand. And that's what the Rains Foundation is trying to change. Iris clicked a remote and a screen behind her lit up with images, photos from the past year. A teacher receiving a check. A mechanic hugging an elderly woman. A teenager volunteering at a shelter. In our first year, we've given out over $2 million in kindness rewards to 317 people who went out of their way to help others. We've provided full college scholarships to 43 students who demonstrated exceptional character. We've partnered with 162 businesses to improve how they treat employees and customers. We've created curriculum for schools in 15 states teaching empathy and compassion. We've launched a national campaign highlighting stories of everyday kindness. And we're just getting started. The audience applauded, but Iris raised her hand for quiet because she wasn't finished. But tonight I want to talk about something else. Something harder. Because rewarding kindness is the easy part. The hard part is confronting cruelty. The hard part is asking ourselves why kindness has become so rare. Why do we mock people for being poor? Why do we treat service workers like they're beneath us? Why do we value convenience over compassion? Why have we created a society where being kind makes you exceptional instead of normal? The room was completely silent now. Iris could see people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. 6 months ago, we launched a new program called the Mirror Initiative. We started documenting incidents of cruelty in public spaces, stores and restaurants and airports, places where people's true character shows. Not to shame anyone, but to show people what we've become. We created a short film from that footage and I want to show it to you now. I warn you, it's not easy to watch. The lights dimmed and the screen filled with video footage. A grocery store much like Peterson's. A woman at the register, counting change, clearly short on money. The cashier's face was impatient. The people in line behind her were sighing and checking their phones and making comments loud enough for her to hear. Can't afford it, don't buy it. Some people have no shame. Why do they even let people like this in here? The woman gathered her items with shaking hands and left, her face burning red. The video cut to a restaurant. A family with 3 small children, one of them crying. The server rolled her eyes and said something to another server, both of them laughing. The father looked exhausted and defeated. The video cut to an airport. An elderly man struggling with his luggage. Dozens of people walked past him. One person actually bumped into him and kept walking without apologizing. The man stood there alone, confused and overwhelmed. The video cut to a coffee shop. A homeless man asked for a cup of water. The barista told him to leave or she'd call the police. He left and the customers in line nodded approvingly. The video showed a dozen more scenes like this, moment after moment of casual cruelty, of people treating each other with contempt and indifference, of a society that had forgotten how to care. When it ended and the lights came back up, Iris could see tears on many faces in the audience. Some people looked angry. Some looked ashamed. All of them looked uncomfortable. That's us, Iris said quietly. That's what we've become. And before you think those are just bad people making bad choices, let me tell you something. We ran an experiment. We hired psychologists to analyze what makes people cruel versus kind in these situations. And what they found was that cruelty isn't about being a bad person. It's about being tired, stressed, rushed, overwhelmed. It's about living in a society that constantly tells us our time is more valuable than someone else's dignity. It's about being so focused on our own problems that we stop seeing other people as human beings. Those people in the video, they're not monsters. They're us on a bad day. They're what happens when we stop paying attention to how we treat each other. She paused to let that sink in. So the question is, how do we fix it? How do we create a culture of kindness instead of cruelty? And the answer is both simple and incredibly difficult. We have to make a choice, every single day in every single interaction, to see people. Really see them. To remember that the person in front of us in line is a human being with problems and dreams and fears just like ours. To remember that service workers are not servants. To remember that poverty is not a moral failing. To remember that everyone deserves basic human dignity. Iris clicked to a new slide showing the Foundation's goals for the next 5 years. Here's what we're planning. We're going to triple our partnerships with businesses, creating a nationwide network of companies committed to kindness. We're going to expand our school programs to all 50 states. We're going to create a documentary series for major streaming platforms showing real stories of how kindness transforms lives. We're going to lobby for legislation protecting service workers from abuse. We're going to establish the Rains Prize, $1 million award given annually to someone who has dedicated their life to serving others. We're going to make kindness visible and valuable and celebrated. We're going to change the culture. The audience erupted in applause. People were standing now, clapping and wiping their eyes. Iris waited for them to settle, then said, "But I need your help. Money helps and we're grateful for every donation. But more than money, I need you to make a commitment. Starting tomorrow, I need you to choose kindness. When someone is struggling in line at the store, be patient. When a server makes a mistake, be gracious. When someone asks for help, help them. When you see cruelty happening, speak up. Be the person who makes someone's day better instead of worse. Be the person who restores someone's faith in humanity. Be the person I needed that day at Peterson's grocery, the person who sees struggle and responds with compassion instead of judgment." She looked directly at Caleb, who was wiping tears from his face. "A year ago, a very wise man taught me that kindness has value, that it should be rewarded and celebrated and encouraged. But he also taught me that kindness is a choice and that choice matters. Every single one of us has the power to make the world a little bit better or a little bit worse with how we treat the people we encounter. That's an incredible responsibility and an incredible opportunity. So I'm asking you tonight, which will you choose?" Iris stepped back from the microphone and the room exploded with applause again, louder this time, sustained and passionate. People were on their feet, some of them openly crying. Iris looked out at them and felt something huge swelling in her chest, something she couldn't quite name but that felt like hope and purpose and possibility all mixed together. After her speech, the gala continued with dinner and dancing and silent auctions. But Iris found herself pulled aside constantly by people wanting to tell her their own stories of kindness or cruelty, wanting to share how her speech had moved them, wanting to get involved with the foundation. A woman in her 60s with perfectly styled silver hair and diamonds that probably cost more than a car grabbed Iris's hand and said, "I was that woman in the grocery store video. Not literally, but I've been her. I've rolled my eyes at cashiers. I've complained about people taking too long. I've treated service workers like they were invisible. Your speech made me realize what I've been doing and I'm ashamed. But I'm also grateful because now I can change. Thank you for holding up that mirror." A young man in his 20s, wearing a tuxedo that looked rented, approached Iris with nervous energy. "I received one of your scholarships. I'm studying to be a social worker. My parents thought I was crazy, that I should go into business or law, something that makes money. But your foundation showed me that caring about people has value. You validated my choice. I just wanted to say thank you." An older businessman with sharp eyes and an expensive suit handed Iris his card. "I own a chain of restaurants. 15 locations across 3 states. After watching that video, I realized we've been treating our staff terribly. High turnover, low wages, no respect. I want to partner with your foundation. I want to learn how to do better. Can we set up a meeting?" Story after story, person after person, all of them touched by what the foundation was doing, all of them wanting to be part of the change. Iris listened to each one, took cards, made promises, and felt the weight of responsibility settling even heavier on her shoulders. This wasn't just a job anymore. This was a movement. Around 10 o'clock, Iris finally managed to slip away from the crowd and step out onto the balcony for some air. The night was cool and clear, the city lights spread out below like a blanket of stars. She stood at the railing, taking deep breaths, trying to process everything that had happened. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Caleb walking out onto the balcony. He'd loosened his bow tie and carried 2 glasses of champagne. He handed one to Iris and stood next to her at the railing. "Hell of a speech," he said. Iris laughed. "I was terrified the whole time. Couldn't tell. You were powerful. Honest. Exactly what people needed to hear." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping champagne and looking at the city. Finally Caleb said, "I have something to tell you. I've been waiting for the right moment and I think this is it." Iris looked at him, curious. Caleb turned to face her fully. "I'm stepping down as chairman of Rains Holdings. I'm 63 years old. I've spent 40 years building this empire, and it's time to let someone else run it. I want to focus all my energy on the foundation, on making sure we have the resources and support to do everything you outlined tonight. But more than that, I want to enjoy my life. Naomi spent our last months together telling me that I'd worked too much, that I'd missed too much, that I'd sacrificed our time together for meetings and deals and money. I can't get that time back, but I can make sure I don't waste whatever time I have left." Iris felt a wave of emotion. "Caleb, that's wonderful. You deserve that." He smiled. "There's more. I'm donating $1 billion to the foundation. Not as a loan or an investment but as an endowment. It will be managed by a trust, and the interest alone will fund operations in perpetuity. The Rains Foundation will outlive both of us. It will continue spreading kindness long after we're gone. Iris couldn't speak. $1 billion. It was incomprehensible. But why, she finally managed to ask. Why give away so much? Caleb looked back out at the city. Because money was never the point. Naomi understood that even if I didn't for a long time. The point is what you do with it. The impact you make. The lives you touch. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. What good is it sitting in accounts or tied up in investments? But $1 billion funding kindness initiatives? That changes the world. That creates a legacy worth having. That's how I keep my promise to Naomi. He turned back to Iris. And there's one more thing. I'm making you a co-chair of the foundation. Equal authority, equal decision-making power. This isn't just my foundation anymore. It's ours. Together we're going to make kindness matter. Iris set down her champagne glass because her hands were shaking too much to hold it. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Yes. Of course yes. But Caleb, I'm still learning. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to mess things up sometimes. Caleb laughed, a warm, genuine sound. Good. That means you're trying. That means you're pushing boundaries and taking risks. I don't want someone who plays it safe. I want someone who cares enough to fight for what's right, even when it's hard. And that's you, Iris. That's who you've always been. They stood there on the balcony, looking out at the city where a year ago Iris had been struggling to pay rent and Caleb had been drowning in grief, both of them lost in different ways, both of them saved by a simple act of kindness in a grocery store. The next morning, Iris woke up in her apartment feeling like she'd been hit by a truck. The gala had gone until 2 in the morning, and she'd barely slept after getting home. But she couldn't stay in bed because she had somewhere important to be. She got dressed and drove across town to the neighborhood where Peterson's grocery was located. The store looked exactly the same as it had a year ago, same faded signs, same cramped parking lot, same general air of barely hanging on. But Iris knew that would be changing soon. Caleb hadn't been bluffing when he said he owned the building. And true to his word, he'd had several conversations with the owner of Peterson's about their management practices. Gerald had been fired 6 months ago. The new manager was a woman named Talia who actually cared about her employees, who paid fair wages and gave proper breaks and treated people with respect. Several of Iris's former co-workers were still there, and they told her how much better things were now. Iris walked into the store and immediately spotted Selah at register 5. Selah saw her and lit up, waving excitedly. Iris walked over and they hugged across the counter. "Look at you all fancy," Selah said, taking in Iris's nice clothes and professional appearance. CEO of a foundation. Who would have thought? Co-chair, Iris corrected with a laugh. And I'm still the same person. Sure you are, Selah teased. Except now you're on TV and in magazines and changing the world. But yeah, totally the same. They caught up for a few minutes, Selah telling her about college classes she was taking now that the new manager actually worked with people's schedules, about her new boyfriend, about how much better the store was without Gerald. And then Iris told her why she'd really come. I want to do something, Iris said. Remember that woman? The one who was so rude to Caleb that day. Selah's expression darkened. The yoga pants lady? How could I forget? She still comes in here actually. Same attitude. She's terrible to everyone. Iris nodded. I've been thinking about her a lot. About what Caleb said, that most people fail the kindness test. I want to give her another chance. I want to see if maybe she's capable of being better. What are you going to do? Iris smiled, a plan forming in her mind. I'm going to test her just like Caleb tested people. But with a twist. Over the next week, Iris set up an elaborate scenario. She hired a private investigator to learn the woman's routine. Her name was Amelia and she was a real estate agent who lived in an expensive condo downtown and came to Peterson's every Saturday afternoon after her yoga class. Iris coordinated with Talia, the new manager, to make sure everything would work perfectly. And then on Saturday afternoon, exactly 1 year after the original incident, Iris walked into Peterson's grocery. She dressed down for the occasion, wearing old jeans and a faded t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked like she had back when she worked there. She grabbed a basket and filled it with the same items Caleb had bought: rice, beans, cooking oil, bread. Then she got in line at register 4, the same register where everything had started. And right behind her, perfectly on cue, was Amelia in her expensive workout clothes and oversized sunglasses. Iris recognized her immediately. The same sharp features, the same impatient energy, the same air of someone who thought the world should revolve around her schedule. When it was Iris's turn, she put her items on the counter. The cashier, a new girl who'd been briefed on what was about to happen, rang everything up. 1947, she said. Iris made a show of patting her pockets, checking her purse, looking increasingly panicked. Oh no, I think I forgot my wallet. I'm so sorry, I could have sworn I had it. She saw Amelia stiffen behind her. Saw the irritation flash across her face. You've got to be kidding me, Amelia muttered, loud enough to be heard. Iris turned around. I'm really sorry, I just need a minute to check my car, maybe I left it there. Or maybe you could check before you get in line, Amelia snapped. Some of us have places to be. Iris felt anger rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. I understand, but I really just need a minute. I'm sure it's in my car. Well, I'm sure I don't want to wait while you figure out your life, Amelia said, her voice dripping with contempt. Either pay or move. Talia, who had been watching from the service desk, came over. Is there a problem here? Yes, there's a problem, Amelia said before Iris could speak. This woman can't pay for her groceries and she's holding up the line. Can you please deal with this so the rest of us can get on with our day? Talia looked at Iris with sympathy. Ma'am, do you need to step aside? Iris looked at Amelia, really looked at her, trying to see past the designer clothes and the attitude to whatever pain or fear or hurt made her treat people this way. Please, Iris said quietly. I just need a minute. I know the money is in my car. I don't care where your money is, Amelia said. I care that you're wasting my time. And then something happened that Iris didn't expect. The woman behind Amelia in line, an older lady with kind eyes, spoke up. Here, she said, pulling out her wallet. Let me pay for her groceries. 1947, right? She handed a $20 bill to the cashier. Iris stared at her, genuinely shocked. This wasn't part of the plan. You don't have to do that, Iris said. The woman smiled. I know I don't have to. I want to. I saw what you did last year. I was here that day when you paid for that man's groceries. You inspired me. You showed me what kindness looks like. And now I want to pass it on. Tears filled Iris's eyes, real tears this time. You remember that? Everyone who was here that day remembers, the woman said. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. You gave your last bit of money to help a stranger. How could I forget that? Amelia was staring at them both, confusion and something else flickering across her face. Wait, what? The woman turned to Amelia. A year ago, this young woman was a cashier here. A man came through the line and forgot his wallet. Everyone was rude to him, telling him to leave, treating him like garbage. And she paid for his groceries with her own money. Her lunch money. The last money she had. It turned out the man was a billionaire testing people to see if anyone would help him. And because of her kindness, he changed her life. He gave her a job at his foundation. She's the one you've probably seen on the news, the director of the Rains Foundation. Amelia's face went pale. She looked at Iris with dawning recognition and horror. Oh my God. You were the cashier. I was here that day. I was the one who... She couldn't finish the sentence. Iris nodded. You were the one who told him to move. Who said maybe he shouldn't shop if he couldn't afford it. Who laughed at his humiliation. Amelia looked like she might be sick. I didn't know. I was having a bad day. I just lost a big sale and I was stressed and I took it out on him. I'm not usually like that. Aren't you? Iris asked quietly. Because you just did the exact same thing to me. Bad day or not, you chose cruelty over kindness. You chose your convenience over someone else's dignity. And maybe you do that a lot more than you realize. The entire front of the store had gone quiet. Everyone was watching this confrontation. Amelia's face was red, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. You're right. I do this all the time. I'm rude to servers and cashiers and anyone I think is beneath me. I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's just how I move through the world. But seeing it from the outside, hearing you describe it, I sound like a monster. You're not a monster, Iris said, her voice gentler now. You're human. You're stressed and busy and focused on your own problems. But Amelia, that's not an excuse. We're all stressed. We're all busy. But we still have a choice about how we treat people. She pulled out one of the foundation's business cards and handed it to Amelia. We have programs that teach empathy and compassion. Workshops on treating service workers with respect. I'd like you to attend one. Not as a punishment but as an opportunity. A chance to do better. To be better. Amelia took the card with shaking hands. Why are you giving me this chance? After how I treated you. After how I treated that man. Iris smiled. Because someone gave me a chance to be kind when it would have been easier to look away. Because I believe people can change. Because holding on to anger and judgment makes me just as cruel as you were. And because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get through life as best we can. Some of us just need help remembering that everyone else is trying to do the same thing. The older woman who had paid for Iris's groceries started clapping. Then others joined in. Within seconds, the entire front of the store was applauding. Amelia stood there, tears still streaming, looking overwhelmed and ashamed and grateful all at once. Iris stepped out of line and gestured for Amelia to go ahead. Go on. You said you had places to be. Thank you, Amelia whispered. Thank you for not giving up on me. After Amelia left, Iris talked with the older woman who had paid for her groceries. Her name was Celine and she'd been shopping at Peterson's for 30 years. They exchanged phone numbers and Iris promised to send her information about volunteer opportunities at the foundation. As Iris drove home that afternoon, she thought about everything that had happened in the past year. She thought about Caleb's tests and Naomi's wisdom. She thought about the hundreds of people the foundation had helped and the thousands more they would help in the future. She thought about Amelia and the chance she'd been given to change. She thought about Celine and how one act of kindness had inspired another. And she thought about that Saturday afternoon a year ago when a simple choice to be kind had set all of this in motion. When Iris got home, she found a package waiting outside her door. Inside was a framed photo she'd never seen before. It showed her at Register 4 at Peterson's 1 year ago, handing Caleb his receipt, both of them smiling at each other. At the bottom, in Caleb's handwriting, was a note. This is the moment everything changed. Thank you for reminding me that kindness matters. Thank you for keeping my promise to Naomi. Thank you for being exactly who you are. With gratitude and respect, Caleb. Iris hung the photo on her wall where she would see it every morning, a reminder of where she'd come from and what was possible when you chose compassion over cruelty, when you saw people instead of obstacles, when you gave away your last $20 to help a stranger. 3 years later, the Rains Foundation had expanded to all 50 states with offices in 12 major cities. They'd given out over $50 million in kindness rewards. They'd provided scholarships to over 300 students. They'd partnered with over 1,000 businesses. Their documentary series had won an Emmy. The Rains Prize had been awarded to a woman who'd spent 40 years running a soup kitchen in Atlanta, and her acceptance speech had made the entire nation cry. And Iris, now 26 years old with a college degree and a position as co-chair of one of the most influential foundations in the country, still remembered what it felt like to count pennies and worry about rent. She still went back to Peterson's grocery sometimes, just to shop like a normal person, to talk to the cashiers, to remember where she'd started. She still drove her old car even though she could afford a new one. She still lived simply even though she could live extravagantly. Because the lesson she'd learned that day at Register 4 wasn't just about being kind to others. It was about staying grounded, staying humble, staying connected to the struggles that most people faced every day. It was about never forgetting that kindness had value precisely because it cost something, because it required sacrifice, because it meant choosing someone else's well-being over your own convenience. Caleb had retired completely now, spending his days traveling and reading and volunteering at local shelters. He and Iris had lunch every month, and he loved to hear about the foundation's latest initiatives and victories. He told her stories about Naomi, keeping her memory alive, making sure Iris understood the woman whose wisdom had started everything. And sometimes, late at night when Iris was working on a particularly difficult problem or facing a setback, she would look at that photo on her wall and remember that one simple act of kindness, one small choice to do the right thing when no one was watching, when there was no reward expected, when it cost her something she couldn't really afford to give, had created ripples that spread further than she ever could have imagined, touching lives, changing hearts, making the world just a little bit kinder, proving that maybe, just maybe, we're not as broken as we sometimes think, that goodness still exists, that people still care, that hope is real and kindness matters, and love, in all its forms, is the only thing that truly changes anything. So here's what I want you to ask yourself tonight, right now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. When was the last time you chose kindness when it cost you something, when it would have been easier to look away, to judge, to prioritize your own comfort over someone else's dignity? And if you can't remember, if it's been too long, if you've fallen into the trap of moving through the world without really seeing the people in it, then tomorrow when you're standing in line at the store or ordering coffee or interacting with someone who's serving you, I want you to make a different choice. I want you to see them, really see them, to remember that they're human beings with dreams and struggles just like yours, to treat them with the respect and kindness they deserve, because you never know You never know when that one small act of compassion might change everything, might save someone who's drowning in grief, might inspire someone to keep going when they wanted to give up, might create a ripple that spreads further than you can imagine, changing lives and healing hearts and making the world just a little bit better, one interaction at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of kindness at a time. And if this story moved you, if it made you think differently about how you treat people, if it inspired you to choose compassion over cruelty, then I'm asking you to do two things. First, subscribe to this channel to support our growth and hear more stories that celebrate the power of human goodness. And second, go out into the world tomorrow and be the person who makes someone's day better instead of worse, be the cashier who paid for a stranger's groceries, be the foundation that rewards kindness, be the change you want to see, because in the end, that's all any of us can do. We can't change the whole world by ourselves, but we can change our small corner of it, one kind act at a time, one generous moment at a time, one choice to see people instead of obstacles at a time. And if enough of us do that, if enough of us choose kindness, then maybe, just maybe, we can create a world where compassion is normal instead of exceptional, where helping someone who needs it is automatic instead of rare, where treating people with dignity and respect is the rule instead of the exception. And that world, that beautiful, kind, compassionate world, it starts with you, it starts with me, it starts with all of us making that simple choice, every single day, to be a little bit better, a little bit kinder, a little bit more human. The end.